Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 175 of Caught in Conversation. As always, I am your host, the Essential John L. Crossfire. Been a little while since we've done one of these. First time we've had a proper full episode be in video, and to be honest, it's going to be chaotic. I've got a shitty cheap microphone that I have to hold so that the sound's direct because it's too muffled when it's down here. So when we get to the core part of this and Suplex Studios clips their little bit, I'm sorry that it's a little bit inconsistent between what you'll see on the full Redemption of John Crossfire DVD when I had it sitting here to try and look professional. But unfortunately, I need to do the best for sound quality. And also, not to brag, but from what I can see, I am actually looking kind of jacked in this shitty little front-facing tablet camera, which might be a little bit askew because it's currently sitting on an exercise bike seat. But we make do with the things that we're given here at the compound. But as you can see, we're Bodyslam and tongue cancer. I'm here. I'm answering questions. I feel terrible because I'm probably going to rant, but I will give Suplex Studios a time cue of when I answer their original question, and I'm going to do it first before I do the bulk of what I've been given here. I've got my phone in dark mode, so that's not as harsh on my cataracts. Even this light here is killing my eyeballs right now, but I can zoom in and out as I need them. But the reality is I was going to do some sort of long-form Q&A on kind of the mission statement for Rest Charity Oz. As we got closer to the show, I was aiming for when we got to the month of August, really, anyway, so kind of turned out good. Like, as I posted on socials, I answered this question. It took me 20 minutes to answer this question. I'm hoping it doesn't take me 20 minutes to answer that one question again, because I do have a handful here, and I want to get a good 45 minutes to an hour here for a full podcast episode, a YouTube exclusive podcast episode, hopefully the one of first of many. But essentially, I'm going to give you a song and match of the week. The song of the week this week is going to be Gonna Ride All Night Long by the Wolverines, because it is the show track for Rest Charity Oz debut show Overdrive on Saturday, August 15th at the Golden Workers Club. Get your tickets now, please. And obviously, as I go through this Q&A and answer these questions, I'll talk more about Overdrive. The match of the week this week, and to be honest, off the top of my head, I can't even remember if I've used this as the match of the week before or not. If I have, my apologies. I do have the list somewhere. I probably should have checked that, but this is Caught in Conversation. This is an official CIC pod production. You get what you pay for. The match of the week this week will be Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, because this is an episode, all things Rest Charity Oz, all things Overdrive, all things my dad when it comes to professional wrestling. And obviously, this was a special pre-order for my dad's birthday month because it has those 80s colors, that 80s flair, the golden edition of the Bodyslam tongue cancer design, which is available on Redbubble and so many others. And you can buy them, and then you can donate to charity and look fresh AF in the process, except for this exact color one because it was a pre-order one, as I just said. But go check out this logo in many different forms and fashions and whatever. But I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to answer Suplex Studios' question first, and hopefully I don't stutter this bad through them. I'm going to answer Suplex Studios' question first, and then I'm going to go through the ones that were sent in. Bada bing, bada boom. Hopefully this can be a somewhat professional production. Anywho, I say with my really cheap $18 lapel microphone with god-awful audio. But hey, if someone wants to buy the old school setup, it is still for sale, pickup only. But this whole thing essentially started with I'm filming a DVD, myself, John Reed, gets to be John Crossfire just for a little bit longer. This guy right here with the wonky eye. I mean, technically John Reed has wonky eyes, but I get to be John Crossfire just a little bit longer, and I get to end this on my own terms. I get to have my redemption tour, provided my body holds up for the next year. And my story was deemed, I guess, fascinating was the word that Jake used for Suplex Studios to tell. And I obviously can't give away the whole thing, the crux of almost went blind, my eyeballs almost exploded, plural eyeballs. Obviously, the right one was the worst of the two. Now my left eye is the bad eye. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to sit here and explain it. But I almost went blind. My eyeballs almost exploded. Everything else that went on happened. And I was forced out the door of professional wrestling. And whether I was a good professional wrestler or not is open for opinion. I say that I'm a terrible wrestler, tremendous worker. But that's another story for another day. But as I went through and I filmed for the John Crossfire DVD, I answered all these questions, and the last question was a 20-minute rant about my dad, and I cried and I bawled, and this microphone died. And full disclosure, it's not fully charged going into this, but it is still charged, so it should last by this season, and that's why I need to stop ranting and get into it. But I got to the last question, which was, tell us about your upcoming charity event and your dad and how that ties into the event itself. So, how does this upcoming charity event tie in to my dad? Well, I've mentioned it time and time again, and I don't fully go into the details because it's long-winded and it's, peaks and valleys and there's twists and turns, but it all comes back to the same thing, is that my dad and I had a very, very rocky relationship. When I was a young kid, I was pretty much his shadow. I went everywhere with him. And at some point, through my parents' separation and divorce, and how that went, and obviously out of respect for my dad, may he rest in peace, and obviously out of respect for Mama Crossfire as well, I don't need to be airing her dirty laundry, but, how my parents' marriage ended, my dad and I, we just didn't get along, A lot of people have similar stories. It is what it is. It doesn't make me special. And we had a very rocky relationship, oftentimes in my late teens and early adult years, coming to blows with my dad on many, many occasions. But there was a handful of things throughout the childhood into the teen years and then the early adult years where we could go months without talking, or we'd have a fight and whatever else. Like, I've told the story about how I went almost a year without talking to him, and then I reunited with him right outside the doors of the Canberra PCYC right before I wrestled, because he surprised me by coming to watch me wrestle in this building. The promo's online. You can go check it out. But there's a handful of things that my dad and we kind of bonded about throughout all that. Whether it was cars, trucks, motorbikes, they all kind of entangled. Trucks specifically, because my dad was a truck driver, hence why trophy is the King of the Road trophy, and the Battle Royal, where he saw me wrestle for the last time ever for Suplex, was called End of the Road. So it all kind of tied in nicely, and that's why it's also a Battle Royal, and we'll extend on that properly in full form. But wrestling was the one major thing where no matter how much my dad and I fought over the years, we could come back to. Like, we'd scream, shout, cuss each other out, and he'd poke his head through my bedroom door, and I'd be watching something, and he'd see, whether it be The Undertaker, Triple H, or even, the 2005 era stuff, where I wasn't exactly watching it in 2005. It'd be maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, especially between like 2008 to about 2011, 2012, when I was in my late teens. And our relationship was probably at the worst. I wouldn't say the worst it would get, but the worst it was for a consistent length of time, and obviously teenagers and hormones and stuff. But my dad would poke his head through the door. We'd have a full-on punch-up like an hour or two beforehand. This is all toxic stuff, trigger warning. We'd have a full-on punch-up, and then he'd pop his head in, and he'd see, again, all those wrestlers I met, and especially if it was like when Hulk Hogan returned to the WWE in the mid-thousands, or, if I was watching one of the many mid-'80s to early '90s compilations, like whether it was the best of Saturday Night's Main Event, or the best of Dusty Rhodes, or the best of Mr. Perfect, or whatever, and there'd be the cast and characters from your Hulk Hogans to Randy Savage to Jake Roberts to Andre the Giant to Ricky Steamboat. Roddy Piper, I can't sit here and name everyone, but just that kind of era, hence why this was the golden era. That's not even a cheap plug. I'm not trying to sell anything because it's not for sale anymore. But, just to kind of get into my mindset of, we bonded about wrestling. And that was just, no matter where we went in life, and especially as I got older, I missed my dad's 50th birthday because of wrestling. Subsequently, I would miss Mama Crossfire's 50th birthday, not necessarily just to wrestling, but wrestling and health and other stuff and everything in between. But I had a very rocky relationship with my dad, which I've said like God knows how many times now. I've already lost count. Take a shot when you watch this back. Maybe don't do that. But wrestling held us together. Wrestling is also the reason, to an extent, and this is going to make me sound like a shitty son or a shitty person, but this is the truth. This is how it happened. Wrestling is the reason that I got to introduce my dad to my now wife. As I've told the story pretty much every year, in June of 2019, my dad underwent what would be his final tongue cancer operation before his passing just a couple months later, but he had, I think, 3 or 4, if not more. I think it was about 3 or 4. I know it was at least 3 off the top of my head. Tongue surgeries where he'd have chunks taken out of his tongue time and time again. And that's why I tell the story. And some people are probably sick of hearing it, but that's why I tell the story about when I was in that Battle Royal at that Suplex end of the road show in Goulburn at the Workers Club. That's the last time I heard my dad's voice. That's the last time I saw my dad smile. And it just so happened that I was standing in a wrestling ring when it happened. Try to hold myself together because this is the point where I broke when I attempted to answer this the first time. But fast forward a month later, July 13th, 2019, ICW had their annual Insane Asylum event, and we had the Hall of Fame the night before. I went to that with Talika/Nova, and I told ICW management and Rex and everyone in between that, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late tomorrow because I'm in town. I'm going to go to the Woden Hospital. I'm going to visit my dad. I technically did see my dad one time before the surgery after the Suplex Battle Royal, but literally I got to see him for 2 seconds and he was that emotional that he barely said anything. I remember literally sprinting up and down stairs and taking wrong turns like a scene out of a movie, just trying to get to the right ward in the Woden Hospital. I got off a bus. The bus was running late. They were literally trying to take my dad into the surgery as I was running up the stairs. And from what my sister and Nan and stuff said, they were literally in the waiting room going, no, like his son wants to see him and just give him a hug basically before surgery and da-da-da-da. So I ran upstairs. I literally gave my dad a hug, told him I loved him. He told me he loved me, told me he loved me, but it was very, tear-felt and gruff and because, 1, he was very scared. 2, he just had a lot of inflammation and stuff on his tongue by that point, so it was still hard to talk even before that last chunk came out anyway. But yeah, fast forward, it's July 13th, he's in hospital. By that point, and up until really the night that he passed away, he was pretty much like he could kind of grunt and say a few things that you would understand, but I'd say 95% of his communication for those last 2 months were pen and paper. Or I guess, text as well, but not every time you saw him, he'd have a notepad on him if he wanted to just say something, and he also just kind of spent his time doodling away just to, I guess, amuse himself and distract himself from the pain. And I'm going to keep checking the microphone light, which is going to make this even more annoying. But sorry to you if you actually watch this. Sorry to Jake if he attempts to edit this. But I just said to Talika, who we weren't even engaged at that point, we'd only been dating for a few months. But Dad was at a point where I don't want to say he'd given up, but they'd essentially told us they hadn't given us the time frame just yet, but they were like, hey, within the year he's probably probably going to be gone, sort of thing. The month after that, again, I'm going to jump all over the place on this. The month after that, they tell us that he had 3 months, and it ended up being 3 days from that appointment. But I went up and I just said to Talika/Nova, I'm going to probably call it Talika a lot of times throughout this, just because this is me. This is more John Reed, Rest Charity Oz founder, than anything else. And if you can throw some crossfire shit in there, then fucking Bob's your uncle. But I said to Talika, do you want to, come meet my dad? And I went up, I saw my dad, I messaged him. He was very sad. He was very mad because he wanted to come across to the Tuggeranong Community Centre just for the night to watch. And I was like, no, there's no one to take you, Plus, you need to be here at the hospital. He made me promise that I'd give him the footage. Unfortunately, he did never get the footage because he passed just on a month pretty much after the match happened. So, it is what it is. But, I spent a hour and a half-ish, maybe 2 hours, I think, with my dad. It wasn't too long, obviously, because I had to get back to Tuggeranong to do my thing. But, we sat there and talked to my dad, and just kind of, he's writing things on paper, and he's kind of grunting a few questions, but it was more just me, telling him what I'd been up to, I guess, and, what Talika and I had been up to, and everything in between. He just kind of wanted to know how wrestling was going, because, again, one, it was probably a distraction for him. Two, that's how we bonded. And the last time he actually came to Canberra to watch me wrestle was April of 2019, and that's actually the night that I turned heel. And it was so funny because earlier in the night, when I was still a face, this is going to be completely behind the curtain, but this is why it's going out as a podcast thing. You can separate the two. If you don't like it, stop watching. The last time he actually travelled to Canberra from Goulburn, April 2019, I was a babyface for my first match, and then I turned later in the night. And the funny thing is, if anyone knows the Belconnen Community Centre, the lights are really bright, and then on top of having Dennis the DJ, he has his lights as well. For people that don't remember, I was technically half blind the entire time I wrestled anyway. The first time, it just wasn't as severe as it is now. And I tell this story because it's like a scene from a movie where I go to the top rope, I go for the frog splash on Reverend Diaz, and it was so fucking weird because I looked out and the whole crowd's a blur, but I see my dad's face smiling at me. And then at the end of the night, I turn heel and everyone boos and I get a lot of heat. And it's one of those things where this is where the not ego, just fact catchphrase started, because I was subsequently the most over babyface and the most despised heel in the same night, and it was amazing. But my family kind of waited for the fans and stuff to leave so Dad could come over and talk to me. And, he'd said it a few times, when I was younger, but it was probably the first time properly in my adult life that he'd said it, and it subsequently would end up being the last time he said it. But my dad telling me how proud of he was of me, and how cool it was seeing me kind of embrace the boos and stuff. And I collapsed in his arms and cried, and it was what it was. But fast forward now back to July 2019, so a few months later. Sorry again, this is going to jump around, whether you're watching this just for the context or whether you're Jake trying to edit this. But yeah, I took Talika up and we chatted about wrestling, as I was saying. And at some point, he just he'd write a few things here and there on the paper. And at some point, it just changed to hey, you two look happy. You look like you're doing well. I'm not gonna lie, Dad. Could see myself marrying this one. Talika's, smiling and, obviously very nervous. And I can't remember the exact wording because I don't know what happened to the piece of paper, but my dad basically wrote on there saying, it wasn't the exact wording, but like he was saying he was so glad to finally meet his daughter-in-law, or to get a chance to meet his daughter-in-law. And the way it was worded, kind of, because he kind of said, I'm so glad, so thank you for thank you for bringing my daughter-in-law to meet me, was what he wrote originally, something to that effect. And then basically from then you could just kind of tell that he meant it as in, this might be the only chance I get to meet her. And lo and behold, that was the first and only time Talika ever got to meet my dad, which is funny because she still talks about it, because he was, even without being able to talk, still one of the cheekiest bastards you'd ever meet. And in a fucked up way, as bad as his health was, we kind of still caught him on a, I guess, good day where his personality shone through, and he became the Paul that we all knew and loved, and the Paul that probably charmed my mum all those years ago before they went through their separation and divorce, and the Paul that as a young boy I wanted to be like. And again, you can call me selfish, but if it wasn't for wrestling, that probably wouldn't have happened. And again, this is really long-winded, and I'm sorry to the people watching, and I'm sorry to Jake, because there's going to be a lot more questions. Hopefully they won't be as emotional as this one. But the long story short is, wrestling is what got my dad and I through a really rough patch. Wrestling is what reconnected my dad and I when the cancer came back for the last time, after we hadn't spoke for quite some time. And because of wrestling, I got to introduce my dad to my wife. And again, these are all kind of, it's circumstantial, and it's in some ways it is coincidental, but I'm a very spiritual person, so it kind of means a lot to me. So then fast forward to, obviously my dad passes away, and I get some inheritance. And I, much like everyone and their dog, wanted to start my own wrestling promotion. And I had titles made, like obviously not physically made, but, drawn up, designed, logo for a company, everything. One of those titles I kind of want to bring into Rest Charity Oz eventually, because it's not going to be a company-specific thing. It can be defended all around Australia and everything else, but one step at a time. Essentially, I had this idea of, I wanted to run Goulburn, and I wanted to run, dare I say, run a show in Wagga eventually, where a few companies have run now, and they've done well, and I wish them all the best. And I'm, hopefully I can attend one of them even just as a fan myself one day. But I wanted to run shows. I've always wanted to run shows. I've always been passionate about creating. As much as I love wrestling, I know that my strengths lie outside of wrestling, whether that be commentary, managing, refereeing, definitely behind the scenes. I have a fantastic wrestling IQ, and I know that there's going to be someone that'll see this and they'll take that out of context. But I know that that's true. As the t-shirt says, it's not ego, just fact. I wanted to give a platform to people to shine. Maybe someone is a really good wrestler and they just want to tick off wrestling in a certain area. Hey, come on down. Maybe someone's doing this or this in another company and I think that they could do this. Come on over. But I still always had the idea of, I want this to be an open door company where I collab with this person, that person, that person. Obviously, professional wrestling does have its clicks, whether we like it or not, and that's probably a naive pipe dream. But now we fast forward, and I go, hey, let me have another crack at this. This is still very taxing, both financially and emotionally, because I can't work. I am going blind. There is limited things that I can do to help out here and there, but I can't work, right? And this is all off my own back. So we do a charity show. And the way I see it is, my health is the shits. It really is. There's no two ways about it. It takes me pretty much a full week to recover after I've wrestled on a show. It is what it is. But there are many other people out there that are so much more worse off than I am. And if I can do anything, even just the littlest thing to help them, whether it be because they have cancer or sickness, whether they are starving, whether they've been affected by bushfires, whether, insert freaking trauma here. If there's anything I can do in the grand scheme of things to help them, whether, injured animals, fellow blind people one day maybe, I wanted to spend my time trying to make other people's time better. Because on these many, many medical trips that I've done with my wife, whether it be, for actual surgery or checkups, or even my wife's own surgery as documented, people are aware Nova has had stomach surgery because she had to choose between that and brain surgery. We obviously know which of the two we'd prefer. We've seen people from all walks of life that don't have support, and they should have support. So I essentially just went, hey, I want to start helping people. Obviously, not not fully related to the why I ran the shows, but High Octane, his girlfriend Emma passed away from tongue cancer. Emma's family started the charity for her, meant a lot to me. So I've started doing a lot of, actively trying to help them. Between the 2024 Emma Butler Memorial Show and as it stands as I record this today, obviously I didn't raise the money myself because other people chipped in, but through methods that I've done, whether that be merchandises or charity streams or challenges or whatever, through things that I have actively set up, we have raised just under $1,000 in those 2 years for a small family-run charity. To me, that is a big deal. That means a lot to me. We've heard High Octane tell the story that already 3 people in the Central West, since the charity started those handful of years ago, have had their lives saved actively because of scopes that were raised by Emma's tongue cancer charity. So I want to do that for this. I want to do that for all types of things. You could name a cause and it's something that's on the bucket list. It's a bit hard because I think one of the questions actually said something of how do you decide the charity? So I'll just answer that now. And the question is, it's touch and go for an extent. We've got an idea of what the next handful of charities will be. Inevitably, the Emma Butler charity will be something that we do circle back to eventually, just because it's personal to us, and obviously being not necessarily a one-person operation, but a very small handful of people with Emma's family running it. They're definitely one of the smaller ones, so we want to do everything we can to help them. But yeah, essentially, I set up Wrestling for Charity with that in mind. And again, if this is long-winded and going around in circles, my apologies. But that is why this first show coming up, which I'm about to answer questions for, is for my dad. And that is why wrestling connects my dad and I, if that makes sense. If there's something there, this will be the end of the Suplex Studios question. By all means, when this is all put together, Jake, listen to the next few questions and maybe there's some sound bites you can take, because I know for a fact I've already ranted way too long to put the whole of this entirety of this question in, which is why I wanted to do it this way, because I knew I already ranted for 20 minutes. If someone watches this whole thing, cool. If not, then I've done my due at least. But this was sent in. I'm going to do the sent in questions first, and then I'll do the NGL anonymous questions next, and then I'll just do a couple of other ones. But these next couple of ones were asked by multiple different people in different forms or fashion, whether that be venues we were looking at, charities we're looking to work with, talent we've wanted to book, friends, family. They're all valid questions, and I'm an open book. If anything else, people that listen to the podcast properly and they've heard me and Nova basically cry on each other at times for an hour and a half, 2 hours, it is what it is, But how will donations work is one of the main ones, and arguably the most important question. So off the bat, I'm going to go into this. Donations will work quite simply. I have said that $1 from every ticket will be the starting point, and then we'll have the other proceeds. So I'm going to break it down. $1 from every ticket will go to the charity. So if we sell 150 tickets, that's $150 already to the charity. And while that doesn't seem like a lot of money, and there might be some snobby people out there that have more money than us thinking, oh, well, charity deserves more than that. With the Emma Butler Memorial Charity specifically, because they buy their equipment in bulk, that $150 actually purchases a handful of scopes as opposed to just 1 or 2 scopes if you were to do it at retail value. So it does help. The second thing is all proceeds from the official Rest Charity Oz merch and the raffles that we have at our respective shows will go to the charity. Now, being that this is our first show, we'll only have a limited amount of merch, but we do have obviously the stuff that's on the Redbubble store, whether it's the Rest Charity Oz logos or the Bodyslam tongue cancer stuff. Obviously, the theme stuff, every show we have will be for a different charity. So we'll have either a specific logo made up like that one, or we'll take the Rest Charity Oz stuff and we'll change the color or we'll change the theme of it to fit the charity that we're working on. So all the Rest Charity Oz stuff will change. It will go towards whichever charity of the event we have upcoming next. So obviously in this case, it is the Emma Butler show. Obviously the next show we have after this, whatever charity we're doing after that, all Rest Charity Oz branded merch, both online and obviously at events, will go to that charity. The Bodyslam tongue cancer stuff will always go to the Emma Butler tongue cancer charity. And then obviously as more courses come alive, so obviously a big one we want to do is some sort of, trigger warning, some sort of suicide awareness show. I have an idea for a tagline and a design. Once that is out, it will go towards suicide awareness charities once we work out which exact one we're going to pick, both for that event and obviously just for the end of time. We could be running a show in 2032 for the Emma Butler Memorial Show, right? But if someone goes on the Redbubble store and purchases a suicide awareness shirt in the build up to that, well, then the funds from that suicide awareness shirt will go back to the suicide awareness charity. We are small but mighty, which is what I keep saying. So yeah. And then as far as the actual proceeds for the tickets, as we said, we started with $1 from every ticket. We have estimated about 20 to 30% will go back into the overhead. Realistically, it should only be 15 to 20%, but we've said 30 just to make sure we don't undercalculate. And so in terms of like the truck hire and camera people, DJs, like little front of house stuff, that will go back into their pocket. And then what is left over will go back into the charity. So all up, it's probably going to be about 70 to 80% ish. Again, this is all in theory. We don't know the exact numbers just yet because there's a few things we've got to work out. But that'll all go back into the charity. Not a single cent will come back to me or anyone else that's working with me with the Rest Charity or stuff. And most of it is just me. Like I have obviously my wife helping me as the queen pin. She's helped book a little cheeky match, which we'll get to. I've got a few people behind the scenes that are helping me flesh out a little things here and there, at least for this coming show and hopefully the next few shows. But none of it comes back to me. And I know that that's been a lot of people's questions and concerns. Some of them valid, some of them probably just trolling. But again, I'm an open book. If you have a question, ask it. So how will donations work? $1 from every ticket. Majority of the ticket proceeds in general. And also on our Humanitix links, Humanitix donates the fees to your allotted charity. So all of our shows will have to be for registered charities. So that way, straight off the bat, right? When we sell our tickets, people are already donating a couple of dollars here and there to the charity. So obviously the fees kind of vary depending on your ticket tier and stuff and how many you buy. But say even if each ticket was only a $1 booking fee, if you sold 150 tickets, that's $150 going to charity because Humanitix donates, I believe, 100%. It may be 50%, so it might be half of that. But you get the point, is we're doing everything we can to maximize profit solely for the charity. And if someone's going to cop that, it's going to be me. And it is very stressful, and it makes me want to rip my hair out. But at the end of the day, I have a roof over my head. And the honest thing is, at times we do struggle to buy groceries and stuff like that because I can't work. But I want to help other people. I don't want to sit around and feel sorry for myself, which is why I still push myself to wrestle so that I can at least end this on my terms and everything else. But donations, it's very straightforward. majority of the tickets, but we start at that $1 per ticket just to make sure we can go, hey, this is for charity. Let's do this. And then all of the raffles, all of the Rest Charities or charities themed merchandise, and then a lot of the wrestlers as well are donating 10 to 20% off of their merch. So I myself, usually with the Radiation Kick shirts, they're $30 each, $10 goes to charity. For this show specifically, any proceeds made from them, I'm donating the entire $30 per shirt back to Emma's charity. And then my general merch, I'm going to be doing about 20 to 30% of it back to the charity as well. And then some of the wrestlers are doing that, as I just said. So this is all about maximizing profits for the charity. And it's funny because a lot of these charities are not for profit, but you know what I mean? Giving them the resources to get the resources, if that makes sense. But that is how donations will work. I hope that made sense. I'm trying to cram as much info as I can into these without ranting too much, but it's hard because I don't want to leave anything out, and I don't want anyone to be misled thinking that the charities are getting ripped off. Because again, this is an official episode of CIC Pod, so I'm gonna throw it all on the table. There have been talents that I have tried to book, and they have basically looked at the setup, and because we're not raising $10,000 for charity, they've essentially accused us of ripping the charities off. And that's not the case. That hurts my feelings as a personal level as John Reed. That hurts my family's feelings, especially being that this show is for my dad. And yeah, but how often will shows be? How often will shows be? Originally, when I launched this, I did say that I was aiming for once every 2 years. I'm hoping that, and again, this all depends on how the first show goes. I could completely blow this thing up and it could die in the ass, which would suck because we are doing this to help everyone. We are doing this to spread the power of positivity. We are doing this to make the world a better place. That is a legitimate thing. But with a few people that I've talked to and everything, hopefully once every year now. Won't always be in the same spot because the goal was to always do rural areas of New South Wales specifically. So yeah, the safe bet is we're going to run at least once every 2 years, but there has been developments and there should hopefully be a show coming up in 2027. And we'll keep you posted on that as soon as possible. It won't be in Goulburn at this stage. But we will be, Goulburn will kind of be, I guess, the quasi-home of Rest Charity Oz to an extent, depending on what we do, because for a long time there, Goulburn didn't get wrestling. And as someone who's originally a Goulburn native, that sucked. But now Goulburn is actually kind of saturated with wrestling, which is great. But we want to maximize shows for the charities. So, yeah, so hopefully once a year. But the safe bet is to still say once every 2 years. Because again, although it is for charity, pretty much everything at this stage is coming out of my own pocket. Okay, question number 3, technically number 4, but question number 3 of the ones that were sent in. Will you guys only be running New South Wales? Will we only be running New South Wales? The answer to that is most likely. Most likely. I want to collab with as many different promotions all around the country as I can, and we've already proven that where we have not so much had a hand in anything because we've just basically helped advertise, and I don't even know if our advertising at this point sold any tickets, but the goal is to help people sell tickets. We've shared AWS did their charity show, Wrestle Strong Dojo did their charity show, but we want to help people all around the country, from Tasmania across to Western Australia up to Queensland, over the Northern Territory. And if we could be involved, that would be awesome. Like, I would love to gain someone's trust enough to where they use their ring and they pay for the venue and say, hey man, we're going to do this, but we trust you to kind of Rest Charity Oz it up and then bring a couple of people from here and there. And do the exhibition matches. Because as I've said multiple times, and as Rest Charity Oz management have said multiple times on social medias, we don't want to say that we're creating dream matches, because that is very cliche, but we are going to do everything we can to create as many exhibition matches possible in the name of charity. Again, wrestling is full of politics. It is full of cliques. Whether you like it, whether you don't, I know I don't like it, but it is what it is. It's something we'll never completely get rid of. That's just the cold, hard facts. But if we can minimize it in the name of charity, that's why the tagline is no BS, no politics, just charity. No BS, just charity. Like, this is what we want. We want to have shows for professional wrestling fans, that professional wrestling fans, the hardcore fans, would want to attend, but also create shows that if someone off the street walks in and goes, oh, cool, there's still one ticket left, which, man, buy those tickets, sell that shit out. But anyone off the street can walk in and go, wow, this is a great night out. 10 out of 10, not going to watch it on TV, or I'm not going to watch it on internet or whatever, but I would go to this show again. I'd have the night out with my family. And we're raising money for charity in the same time, which is awesome. Like, I want to do that. But yeah, the long of the short is, most likely it's probably still going to be just New South Wales, if we're being realistic. But yeah, I would love to run shows, or at least collab on shows, where it's Rest Charity Oz, and MCW is never going to happen. They're one of the biggest companies in the country, and I'm just me. But imagine if it was like MCW cross Rest Charity Oz. That would be fucking sick. Again, the chances of it happening are 0.0000001%. But yeah, most likely just New South Wales. And honestly, we're looking around New South Wales. There's a few areas that I wouldn't mind running in the ACT, but I don't kind of want to step on people's toes at the same time. Like, there's 3 companies in such a small area as it is. New South Wales is already so many companies, and even putting this show together, this is why I kind of want to do one a year, and the card has changed because of it, because we announced it so far in advance. But another reason we announce it so far in advance is we're trying to get talent from all over, and we don't want to take people from insert promotion here. Like, we have a couple of people in Victoria who would have been booked if we booked them earlier, but now they've already got prior commitments, and it is what it is. It's just, that's how wrestling works, right? But yeah, the answer to that, and I kind of ranted, I could have just said yes and moved on, but I'm again trying to be as transparent as I can with these questions. So will we only be running New South Wales? Probably. Most likely. I'm not going to hold my breath, but at the same time, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we can collab and work with people. And regardless, we're still going to keep sharing around all the charity shows on the Rest Charity or socials, and talking about them here on YouTube on CIC Pod. Hopefully I need to get a new, like, just a shitty USB mic or something, so that I can do proper, interviews again when I can't do them face to face. But yeah, we want to collab. We want to do stuff. Anyway, again, not sorry I'm ranting. I'm trying to answer this question as a podcast in long form, so that everyone has their answers and we can all sleep peacefully, and we can please buy those tickets. These next few were sent in anonymously through the whole NGL kind of gimmick. And I always kind of, when I do Q&As, I always put them up there because sometimes people prefer that. I don't know whether it's, anxiety or whatever it is, but there is a few people that troll as well, and that's fine. If you have a question that's genuine, if you send an obvious troll question, I'm not going to answer it. But there's one of these questions here which I genuinely don't know if it's by a concerned citizen or from a troll, but it was written in a way that I kept it in. So, the first of the anonymous questions was, did Nova Lee really pick the participants in the Supernova Showcase? Yes, as we announced yesterday, as I record this, so I'm recording this on Monday, July 13th. The 13th, and let me tell you, a lot of shit's happened today to live up to being the 13th. Thank God it wasn't Friday the 13th, because it probably would have been worse. But no, as announced yesterday, as I record this, the Fatal 4-Way, which became a triple threat, is now singles, but I think we're happy with that. We've got a plan for that as a promotion, as an organization. I prefer referring to it as an organization rather than a promotion, but at the same time, I'm still the promoter, so it's it's a paradox within itself. But yes, Nova Lee did pick the women. I, full disclosure, did message them, but Nova, she originally came with a list of 8 to 9 women around the country that she's very big fans of. One of them, unfortunately, was locked in and then pulled out before she was even announced, which that's unfortunate, and we hope to work with that individual in the future. But because of that, we were able to get Kyla Knight. And obviously, Kyla had to pull out because of her scheduled surgery, and then her recovery time falls in now the week of that show. It is what it is. I've had eye surgeries. You know, we've all had different types of surgeries. We all know how that works. Sometimes you wait years. Other times they go, hey, you're in this date. It is what it is. It sucks. Nova Nichols now has real life stuff to where she can't come either. But yes, we have originally announced for the match was Kyla Knight, Nova Nichols, She-Wolf, and Harper Sky. It is now Harper Sky versus She-Wolf in a singles, which in a way, coincidentally, it has been a happy accident because they've got a little rivalry brewing now, and Rest Charity Oz gets to play at least a little hand in that rivalry continuing. So that makes me very happy as a wrestling fan and as a booker / promoter. But yes, Nova Lee came with a handful of names, and we were lucky enough that we didn't even go through that list entirely. And there's other names now where we're like, oh, should we get them as replacements for this person or that person? But look, we tried to get one of the people off that list. They're already previously engaged, whatever you want to say. So we decided there's a couple of other people who we probably could have reached out to, but they were, again, further down the list. So we didn't want to make this more convoluted than it needs to be. But yes, Nova is a massive wrestling fan. She has become a bit more of a casual fan herself since she's had her own health issues because, as many people have seen online, she was going to start training, and I started doing a little bit with her, and there's probably a lot of people that say that I'm not a trained enough to be a wrestling trainer. And while that's up for debate, I taught her some really good basic chain stuff and some basic footwork stuff and little things that she was really on the right track. And unfortunately now she's a little bit heartbroken by that, which sucks. But yes, she has a hand in this. She's had a hand in a couple of other people coming in, whether that be in the Battle Royal or other matches, and me going, hey, like, what about this person and that person? And she's got her finger on the pulse. But yes, Nova, while not an official booker per se, she has her hand in a few little things that she's helped me with, and she, from a psychology standpoint, just blows me away with how good she is at a lot of this stuff. And we've discussed that on the podcast properly when whether we've had guests or whether we've done breakdowns rather, / reviews. Nova did pick the women. The women wrestlers. I just messaged them, but yeah, Nova's fingerprints are all over that, and she actually said last night that, oh, I hope it doesn't make me look bad as a booker because I've picked these people and the match has changed. I'm like, no, welcome to the wrestling business. It is what it is. I personally think she did an amazing job of putting that match together, and as a wrestling fan, I myself was excited for that match, but it is what it is. Number 2, will you ever have any internationals on your show? Now, much like before where I said most likely for the New South Wales only shows, I'm going to flip that and say probably not and not likely. Again, this is all off my own back. I want to create exhibition matches, and hey man, if I won Lotto tomorrow, I wouldn't tell anyone, but there'd be signs. There might be an international or two here and there, but no, like realistically, it's not going to happen. And even as I just look at it on the surface, it's not something that I think is needed. Now, obviously, if someone happens to be in the country at the same time that we run a show, and for whatever reason they haven't got a date, man, you bet your ass I'd kind of go, hey, what's your asking price? Because that is a bigger draw, and in money, that's extra money. In theory, that's an extra money for charity, right? So I'd be silly to not jump on that. But the general consensus is not likely. Absolutely not likely. I am not in a position to do that. That's why I am doing it as wrestling for charity. We're doing it this way. We're not having a full-fledged promotion. I would be foolish of me to even attempt that on the surface. Question number 4 of the anonymous questions. Question number 3. I can read. John Reed can read. I can read. If you could book any international star for wrestling for charity, money being a non-factor, who would it be? And again, I'm not trying to blow smoke here, but I genuinely, there is people in Australia that I would love to book just in general that I know, I don't know what their asking price would be for charity. I have had discussions with a few people here and there, but there's people like a Robbie Eagles, who I guess in a way he is an international star because he's in New Japan frequently and stuff like that. But bringing a guy like Robbie Eagles in, Mick Moretti, bringing a guy like Adam Brooks in from Victoria, a Damian Slater over from Perth, a Gavin McGavin. I'm not sure if he's Perth or South Australia at this time. I think he's in Western Australia as well, from memory. If I'm wrong on that, my apologies. But there's people like that, like Bobby Bishop up in Queensland. Man, I would fly him down in a heartbeat if I could. But if I could have internationals, man, it'd be so cool. Like I saw that ECW superstar, WWE superstar, Super Crazy is actually performing for my friends at MXW. And man, just because he's like, obviously he's going to be leaving the country just before our show happens. But I was like, man, obviously I'm not financially in a position to do it this time for our first show. But I was like, man, if he's in the country, man, imagine if I was to do Super Crazy and imagine if I was able to throw someone like Super Crazy in with Arima and Doomslayer in the opener and turn it into a triple threat, like something like that. Like there is guys, that I'd like to book, like a James Storm who frequents Australia semi-frequently. Brian Kendrick is wrestling all over Australia at the moment. There's a lot of people who I would like to bring in. Like selfishly, I'd like to bring in Crazy Steve, who I've had on the pod. But I, as a promoter and booker, need to look at the bigger picture, where again, I can't just book matches for me. I need to do it for a wrestling fan. And a lot of these matches on Overdrive, I would watch as an Australian professional wrestling fan. But I need to, if I was to bring in an international, that's where it needs to be someone that could probably bring in not only the hardcore fans, but be able to translate to some of the casuals as well. Like I know Carlito does shows in Australia. He's been known to be here. Chris Masters has been known to be in Australia. There's a few people who, yes, I would love to have, but the reality is if money was a non-factor, I'd kind of just be plucking guys from all over the country more than an international. Because again, imagine if I was to say, hey, here's Zach Stryker, a young, hungry rookie who, he still needs a bit more to go, but he has so much potential. Here's Zach Stryker versus Robbie Eagles. Or, hey, Lord forbid, a guy like Ricky South. Imagine if I had Ricky South versus, who have I got on the card? Arima, Jay Gibson. I've got even just in the Battle Royal, like I've got Adrian Axton, who he's been out of the game for a while. But imagine if I was to say, hey, here's you versus Adam Brooks or a Matt Hayter or something like that. That'd be so sick. But I need to be realistic about this. So to answer the question, probably not. Much like how I said there's a 0.00000 chance that I'd collab with the likes of an MCW or a PWA because they're much bigger than I am. There's a 99.999999999% chance that I will probably not have internationals. And I hope the odds aren't actually that high. I hope they're not that high. But yeah, probably not. But I do seriously appreciate that. I really, really do appreciate that. And before I run through the card, I will answer the last question because it will segue into this, and I won't spend too long on the card. But Drop Bear asked me, Savage King Drop Bear, said, what match on this card do I personally find the most interesting? And that's I honestly don't know if I can answer this question without ranting to you. Because again, I've tried to book these matches to be matches that I think Australian wrestling fans would enjoy, and that casuals that just want to have a good night and support charity would enjoy. So obviously, we've already announced that in our opening contest, we will have Doomslayer versus Arima. That will be the first match of the night because I want that to set the tone. I mean, it'll technically be the second match, but it'll be the first match of the main card where hopefully everyone's in their seats by that point. Obviously, myself, GMAC is questionable at the moment after Rex attacked his ankle. But, you know, whoever I end up facing, I'd like to say, I find my match the most interesting because it's my match. So, you know, this, and I'll put it out here as well, on the pre-show, I will be John Crossfire. But once that main show starts, I am just John Reed, Rest Charity Oz founder. And I will be refereeing a couple of matches as just John the Ref. Just because it means a lot to me, it means a lot to my family. So I want to do the right thing, right? But yeah, so we got the opening contest, Arima and Doomslayer, to set the tone. Arima is a severely underrated talent who I was genuinely shocked hasn't been to more places, whether that be in New South Wales itself or beyond for all the states. But then I've also obviously got my main event is Jay Gibson versus Scott Justice. This match did change a lot of time. I'm not gonna that's not a secret. Our card subject to change hit this card about 10 or so times, once before it was even announced, and a few times before after it was announced. Luckily, some of those things we hadn't actually announced as Rest Charity Oz publicly, so it kind of saved our ass. But from a few injuries and other things, we've actually dropped a couple of matches and, you know, changed matches, and it's part of the wrestling business, right? But we ended up with Jay Gibson versus Scott Justice, and this is where it gets hard because there's a reason this is the main event, and I cannot wait I will be refereeing this match. And again, I'm not trying to insert myself. I'm there as John Reed, John the Ref. I want to be a part of this match, and it's a clash of two veterans. Obviously, Scott Justice, just with that little bit of edge, but I've said multiple times, and again, he gets mad when I say it, because I think it's because he doesn't need people to say it for him, but I genuinely think Jay Gibson is the best wrestler in New South Wales, regardless of promotion, no matter how small or big they are. And I think that Jay Gibson and Scott Justice are going to beat the absolute shit out of each other. And selfishly, I wanted to be front row to see that. Pun not intended, I'm legally blind. But I want to be there. And I think that this match has the potential to be one of the best matches of 2026, regardless of promotion. And I've, for the last 2.5 years now, or I guess, year and a half. 2.5 years. 2.5 years. What is math? For the last 2.5 years, I have touted the A-Shaq Jay Gibson match in January of 2024. In my opinion, that was the best wrestling match in Australian wrestling. And a lot of people some agreed, some kind of shat on it because it was on such a smaller stage. But this is where I want Rest Charity Oz to kind of be that medium of, we don't need to pack out 500 plus people in an arena, which would be awesome, because think of how much would go to charity if we had that many people in the door. But at the same time, this is a good medium ground, right? If we sell that baby out and we've got 200 plus wrestling fans in the name of charity, or even just 200 plus fans, regardless, right? We've got, I think, it's gonna be. I think we've got something special. That's what I was going to say. We've got something special. I was almost going to change. I was almost going to change the statement, but no, I'm going to stick with that. We've got something special. We genuinely have got something special here with Jay Gibson and Scott Justice. And honestly, this match, speaking as, you know, this is Caught in Conversation and it's a bit more behind the curtain, it was kind of a happy accident, and I cannot wait to see this match. And obviously, the match we mentioned before, Harper Sky versus the She-Wolf, my bad. I'm going to leave that in. I'm not even going to edit that. Harper Sky versus the She-Wolf. She-Wolf versus Harper Sky. That's interesting as it is, just because Harper just defeated She-Wolf up in Queensland for Nightfall. And I know that She-Wolf, she's announced publicly, she took a little bit of a hiatus there for a bit, but she's back. She's on the books. She wants to wrestle anyone and everyone. She's hoping to do some stuff with Insurgency with Jake down the line, and I'm dreading if they ever decide to take over and hijack Rest Charity Odds, because I don't know what I'll do to stop those two, because we've seen what they've done. They've terrorized Sydney and Newcastle, as She-Wolf and Jay Gibson have. But that match in itself could potentially be match of the night. We've got the King of the Road Battle Royal for the Paul Reed Memorial Shield, the Rest Charity Oz Charity Shield, aka the official name, Rest Charity Oz King of the Road Memorial Championship. And this is a fun one. This is a very, very fun one because, and I actually did originally talk about this when I answered Suplex Studios' question, and I had it as part of that question, but I tried to avoid it for this video. If y'all actually get this far and Jake, for whatever reason, actually decides to watch this far, then now he can hear it. But this is, the concept of this is a direct ripoff of something. And as a wrestling fan, I'm not going to hide that. So the concept of this, and this is something that I was going to have if my wrestling promotion had have come to fruition, this was going to be one of the quote-unquote titles, where whoever wins this charity shield will still have to defend it like a charity shield. But they have the option within 24 months of winning it, within 2 years of winning it, but that means that they've got to defend it for a full 2 years. If it takes them 2 years to do this, they can exchange it. Not cash in, not run in. They can exchange it for a championship shot. Originally, it was going to be for any title within insert promotion here, which I'm still going to keep that under wraps, because you never know. Maybe one day I'll win Lotto and it can be a subsequent off-branch of Rest Charity Odds. Chances are low. But no, it was going to be any title in that company, the shield could be exchanged. And I stole this idea. I stole it. I ain't gonna lie. I stole this idea from Lucha Underground. They had a championship called the Gift of the Gods Championship, where they had 7 different gems. It was almost like kind of Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet, where each wrestler, they'd compete for all these different gems, and then eventually you'd have one wrestler holding each one, and then they'd have a big match, all 7 certificates, and then they get put together, and it makes the Gift of the Gods Championship. And they had to defend it like a championship, but they could exchange it for the Lucha Underground World Championship. But the caveat was the promoter, Dario Cueto, who I can't think of the man's real name, but he's a tremendous actor, great actor. The whole thing was he had to know about it, because as the promoter, he needed to make money off the match. So I've kind of, in the same vein of that, I've taken it as, and I've talked to some of our affiliate promotions, and obviously we have 3 direct affiliate promotions on this show, being Extreme Capital Wrestling, Insane Championship Wrestling Australia, and Suplex Professional Wrestling. But we do have others, like where I've been in talks with people in Victoria and elsewhere to potentially come in. We obviously have talents from all over the place. We have Doomslayer from Tasmania. Obviously, we originally had Kyler, who's from Queensland. I can say this because it's being announced today as I record it, but we've got Johnny Hardwood coming down for the King of the Road Battle Royal. We've got people coming from all over. Doomslayer actually just won the PWP Cairns Championship up in Queensland. I'm trying to pull some strings to hopefully, keyword is hopefully, get a Tasmanian to defend his Queensland Championship in New South Wales on my show. But the whole point of this is, you win that shield, the King of the Road Memorial Championship, has my dad's face kind of etched on it. The photo that's on it is the same photo that we actually used for his funeral booklet. It seemed very appropriate. It's a little bit morbid, but it's a great photo of him. It's got the Rest Charity Oz logo on there. And the whole thing is, people will get the date they want it on there, the name written on there. And they'll have to defend it in wrestling matches like a traditional wrestling championship. But if it comes down to it, I know for a fact, I've been speaking with ICW management. I've been speaking with General Manager Tiny. The reason Rex is in this match, and we picked him because we thought he was a good representation, but I know for a fact He wants to win that, mainly keep that shield, so that if I somehow don't beat Rex for that heavyweight championship at ICW Chill Factor as I record this, Rex may hold that trophy hostage for 2 years. Obviously, he's going to have to defend it at some point, but the whole point is that he's trying to go for that shield so no one can cash in to face him for his heavyweight title. But currently, you got Mike Kelly as the ECW Extreme Capital Wrestling heavyweight champion. Obviously, he had to withdraw from this show. He was previously announced he's still recovering from injury. He's going to be good to go by Extreme Capital Wrestling's next show on the 10th of October, actually facing Nick Maltino in a Irish pub fight where you got to win by a pinfall submission or knockout. No holds barred. It's going to be chaotic. But say we could have King Careel from Suplex. He could win that shield. And he could then talk to me and he could talk to Suplex Management and Timothy Wilkes and say, hey, at this show here, I'm going to cash this in. So the Mob can get a shot at the tag titles, or I'm going to take a shot at the streaming title, or the Suplex Undisputed title, the Suplex No Limits title, or Careel could even say, hey, this is for any affiliate trophy. Maybe King Careel takes that trophy, he cashes it in, and he says, hey, whoever wins between Nick Maltino and Mike Kelly, I'm going to face them on insert date here at this show. That's the whole crux, is you've got to defend it, but you can also exchange it, but it has to be announced well in advance so that we can promote it. Because it's all about that money, and especially if it is on one of our charity shows, it's about the charity. So say, hey, maybe our next show, and we've got Johnny Hardwood. Maybe Johnny Hardwood wins that Memorial Shield. He's then going to have to go up to Nightfall and PWP as well, and whatever other promotions in Queensland he works for, and he may have to defend that shield up in Queensland. Someone else could win it that's not even a part of the Rest Charity Odds roster, and then they come down for show number 2, and it's going to be this cool thing. Or he could come back and say, hey, at show number 2, insert wrestling promotion here that's on the poster and one of your affiliates. It could even be a promotion down in Victoria. Hey, I'm going to challenge. I, a Queenslander, am exchanging this shield to challenge for this Victorian title in this town in New South Wales. It's all very convoluted, but trust me, when it happens, it'll make sense. It'll all make sense. So that, in its own right, I find very interesting drop there, because it is for my dad. And I have said, and again, because this is a podcast, I'm going to kind of do a little inside baseball here. I have Cody Rhodes'd myself out of this shield. I'm not challenging for this shield. It is bigger than me. It is bigger than any individual. It is purely for keeping my dad's memory alive, keeping the flow of things going in Rest Charity Oz, and more importantly, raising money for charity, and in this case of this event, body slamming tongue cancer. And then obviously we have Zach Stryker versus Joey Ferrugia. Again, this match is probably going to be the hardest hitting match on the entire card. So that, to me, could be interesting, depending on what your idea of a night out is for. You got Big James versus Johnny Morgan. 5 minutes on the clock. Big James kind of been very limited in appearances in the last few years, but I know for a fact he's training hard. He has dropped a bunch of weight. And then Johnny Morgan, he's an uprising prospect from the Suplex Professional Wrestling Gym. Big James is kind of viewing this as his final flame. As someone that is his real-life best friend, I find that interesting. It just depends on where you're at. I think from a fan perspective, I'd have to probably say the main event, and that's why it's the main event. But I genuinely can't pick which match I personally am most looking for. If you say which match I'm most looking forward to, it's the Battle Royal, because I'm looking forward to shaking the hand of whichever competitor earns that trophy and, handing it to them and XYZ, all the stuff that's going to come along with it. But in terms of most interesting, to go back to Jot Bear's question, man, I don't know. So, as I said, we got Doomslayer and Aramo. We got Jake versus Scott Justice. We got Harper Sky versus She-Wolf. We got Stryker versus Ferrugia. We got Big James versus Johnny Morgan. And then, of course, so far in the King of the Road Battle Royal, King Careel, Ryan Jacobs, Frankie Grime, The Unit, Harvey Falco, Rex, Adrian Axton, Johnny Morgan, if he survives Big James, is going to be in that match pulling double duty. And as announced tonight, as I'm recording this, so it's kind of a CIC pod exclusive, but not really, as mentioned before, Johnny Hardwood plus 3 other people. 2 of those spots are spoken for, but I'm going to wait until the night of to reveal it, so there's no pressure on them. One of them is still open with a handful of people just waiting for me to sign off, and it's a really hard decision for me. I'm going through the roster, I'm going through the potential competitors, and I just want this to be a great mix. And I know G-Mac's pushing to jump the line, but we've got to see how we go with this, with his ankle injury and everything else in between. But it's a really good question, Drop Bear. With that, I have been ranting for a long time. I'm not expecting anyone to watch all of this, or at least not all in long form. And I've been sitting here for a while. I'm starting to get a little bit itchy. I'm starting to get a little bit agitated, fidgety because of my ADHD. My mouth is getting really dry. I do have water sitting next to me, but I think I'm just going to wrap it up so that I can chug it off camera and it will be fine. But this has been a long form thing. And I'm hoping I've done a good job of breaking it down. Like, it hasn't been my usual previews that myself and Nova would do where I'd be like, hey, I think this guy's going to win and this and this and this. But I'm trying to just break down the barriers and be as transparent as I can of this is why this show means a lot to me. This is what we're doing with Rest Charity Oz. And this is what our first show entails, which I genuinely think is very appropriately named Overdrive. Like, we're not going balls to the wall crazy, but I think this is an amazing, amazing base for things to come. Some great matches, some exhibition matches in the name of charity, as I keep saying. You could almost say that Jay Gibson versus Scott Justice is a dream match, but I don't think it's one of those ones where, like, it's on the surface obvious. But now it's been announced, people are going, oh shit, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to be there. Or if they're unable to make it, I can't wait to see the footage and yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to wrap this up because I've been talking for I don't even know how long. The time isn't even showing because it's still recording. Technology. But because I said this was a song of the week, because I said this was an episode, the song of the week officially will be Gonna Ride All Night Long by the Wolverines. The match of the week will be Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. Shout out to my dad. Shout out to the Golden Era. And if you have the means, please buy a ticket to Overdrive on Saturday, August 15th at the Goulburn Workers Club. But also before that, July 25th, Belconnen Community Theatre. I will actually be competing against Rex for the ICW Heavyweight Championship. Really hope I can take it home literally to Goulburn. Being able to defend that title in my hometown in honor of my dad would mean a lot, but that remains to be seen. I got to get the job done first. Link for that will be in the bio, or in the description rather. Of course, Extreme Capital Wrestling, as I previously mentioned, will be October 10th. And then Friday, July 17th, Suplex have a show as well. And I will hopefully have this up before then. If it's not, I apologize to Spade and Tim. If it is, the link will be there below. But it is what it is. And just keep an eye on a lot of our friends at the podcast, at Alpha in Victoria, MXW in Victoria. I know a lot of the times when the pod's running frequently, there was, all the stuff and all the things in the links in the description and in the bio. But because this is so convoluted, I'm going to try and stick with just the affiliate promotions, direct affiliate promotions, just for this video and show preview sort of thing. But yeah, I really hope that I didn't rant too long for Jake's question. I know I ranted too long, but I'm hoping he can take a soundbite out of it somewhere. But I'm hoping I answered some questions. I think I've been talking for close to 2 hours, which is my bad. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because it is what it is. Wrestling for charity means a lot to me. I have a lot of goals. They're not insane goals. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. I'm not trying to take over WWE, WWE's position in Australia like some people. I'm not trying to pretend to be something that I'm not. This is a small but mighty promotion. This is, dare I say, a mom and pop promotion. And I want to have a great mixture of talent from all over the country. And I just want to help people because, man, I wish I had someone to help me. And obviously things are starting to get better, but they're also, in other ways, starting to get worse. And at the same time, as I said, there's people out there who their illnesses or qualms are 10 times more worse than mine, 100 times more worse than mine. So I just want to help people. So come along for the ride with me. Let's kick this into overdrive. Let's make Rest Charity Oz a permanent fixture of Australian wrestling, and let's continue, at least for this upcoming show. We'll keep doing it for all different charities, but let's continue to Bodyslam tongue cancer, and we're going to ride all night long.